It's hard to believe we're even here talking about this, but yeah, the world is still kind of reeling from Liam Payne's death.
Yeah.
It's he was only 31.
I know.
And it's a stark reminder that behind all the fame and the fortune, people are fighting battles we know nothing about, you know?
Absolutely.
So you all have asked us to go beyond the headlines on this one, and we're going to do our best. You sent over Liam's Wikipedia page, and of course that TMZ article, which is just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So we're going to dive into all that and try to, I don't know, make sense of it all, or at least try to understand, you know, the complexities of his life and what led up to this awful tragedy.
Right.
It probably makes sense to start with One Direction, right?
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, talk about a global phenomenon,
Yeah.
catapulted Liam into the spotlight, formed on X Factor. I mean, they were just unstoppable. Millions of albums, fans everywhere. It's hard to even grasp that level of fame, you know?
It really is.
And then in 2015, they go on hiatus, and like the other guys, Liam starts focusing on his own music career. And here's where I think it gets interesting. Liam's story isn't like your average, you know, overnight success kind of thing.
Right.
His life before One Direction, I mean, he faced some real challenges. Things that might have, you know, made someone else give up, but he didn't. He used those challenges to make him stronger. You know what I mean?
It's true. And I think that's what's so fascinating is, like you were saying, how his early life really shaped his resilience. I mean, born 3 weeks premature.
Yeah.
And then dealing with a serious kidney condition, needing daily injections as a kid. Can you imagine?
I can't even imagine.
So young. And dealing with that kind of thing. But he doesn't let it stop him. He ends up becoming a top-ranked runner. I mean, even back then, you see that determination. And then at 12 years old, he takes up boxing to deal with bullies.
Wow.
Come on, it shows you something about his character,
Yeah.
like facing things head on. And maybe, in a way, that kind of prepared him, you know, for all the pressures of fame that came later on.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like those tough experiences early on, you know, they forged something in him.
Right.
And get this, performing, it wasn't even new to him. At 12, he's already up on stage playing Tony Manero in Saturday Night Fever.
Wow.
And then a few years later, he's singing for 26,000 people at a football match.
Get out.
This guy, I mean, he was comfortable in the spotlight long before most people even knew his name.
It's true.
It makes you think, did those experiences contribute to his drive to perform? Like, was it just something inside him that kept pushing him forward?
It's an interesting thought. I mean, we always hear artists talking about how, you know, their struggles, especially early on, how they influence their art.
Right.
So it's definitely possible that those early experiences played a part, you know,
Yeah.
in shaping his work ethic and even his desire to connect with an audience,
Yeah.
you know, on such a huge scale.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, we've talked about his drive, his talent, but what about Liam the person? You know, beyond the whole stage persona, what I'm seeing from these sources is a picture of someone who was way more than just a pop star, you know?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you look at his philanthropic work and you see a pattern of someone who really cared about using his platform to help others, to advocate for people who needed it. He was really involved with children's charities like UNICEF.
Yeah.
And he was a big supporter of cancer research, too,
Yeah.
through his work with Trek Stock.
Yeah.
He wasn't just lending his name to these causes either. He actually raised a lot of money himself. That says something.
Exactly. It wasn't just about writing a check for him. And his Wikipedia page mentions how he was really vocal about Black Lives Matter and women's rights, especially reproductive rights.
That's right.
There's actually a really powerful quote from him about the abortion legislation where he says, "Completely taking away the rights of women, how can we even comment or decide?" I mean, it just gives you a glimpse into his values, you know, and the causes that really mattered to him.
Yeah. It's like you said, there's often a lot more to these public figures than we realize.
Exactly.
They're not just entertainers, right? They have these deeply held beliefs, passions, things that drive them.
It's a good reminder, you know,
Yeah.
that there's always more to the story.
For sure.
Now, okay, besides his philanthropy and activism, Liam also had this whole entrepreneurial side, which I feel like people don't always talk about.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, this wasn't a guy who's just riding the coattails of being in a boy band. He starts his own music publishing company, Hampton Music Limited,
Right.
which tells me he had a real head for business.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about, remember his whole NFT thing?
Oh, right.
Lonely Bug?
Yeah.
I mean, that shows you he was thinking ahead, willing to explore new things, new technology, different ways to be creative. It wasn't just about staying famous. It seemed like he was genuinely interested in the business side of music.
It does. It kind of challenges that image of just a pop star, you know?
It really does.
You start to see this multifaceted person.
Mm,
Talented musician, sure, but also a compassionate advocate, a savvy entrepreneur.
right.
Like you said, there's always more to the story.
Always.
And sadly, as we know, Liam's story, his life, it wasn't without some real struggles.
No, it wasn't.
In those years leading up to his death, he was so open, you know, about the darker side of fame, the toll it took on him, especially his mental health.
Right. Yeah, it's true. Liam was really open about his struggles with addiction.
Yeah.
Alcohol, prescription drugs, you name it.
Right.
He talked about how the pressures of being in one direction, you know, all that fame at such a young age.
Right.
It really messed with his head, his mental health.
Yeah.
He even said he struggled with severe suicidal thoughts.
That's heartbreaking. He was so young when all that pressure started.
I know.
Makes you wonder about the price of fame, you know? Well,
Absolutely.
those expectations.
And it just shows you that, you know, it's so important to talk about mental health,
Yeah.
especially in those high pressure worlds like the music industry.
It's okay to not be okay.
Right. And asking for help, it's not weak. It takes courage.
It really does.
And Liam, he showed us that. He got treatment, went to rehab back in 23.
Yeah.
And remember when he celebrated being over 100 days sober?
Oh, yeah, earlier this year. That was great.
It felt like he was, you know, turning things around,
Definitely.
finding his way.
Yeah, it was inspiring to see.
It was.
We do have to address the elephant in the room, though.
Yeah.
That interview with Logan Paul back in 22,
Oh, yeah.
not his best moment.
No.
He was clearly under the influence, and he said some really, I don't know, inflammatory things about One Direction, about Zayn.
Yeah.
It sparked a lot of controversy, understandably so.
It was tough to watch, honestly.
Yeah.
It felt like he was really struggling. And it made you question, like, where he was at with his recovery, you know? Right. And I think it's a reminder that recovery, it's not a straight line.
No.
There are going to be bumps in the road, setbacks.
Yeah,
To his credit, Liam did apologize
he did.
for what he said.
Well-
He owned up to it, said it was the addiction talking, not him.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we're all human, right?
We are.
We make mistakes, especially when we're battling our demons.
Absolutely.
So, with that in mind, I think we should try to piece together what happened in Liam's final days. I know it's hard,
Yeah.
but the TMZ article, it gives us some details, and I think understanding the context is important.
It is. So, we know Liam was in Buenos Aires, right?
Right.
He had just been to a Neil Horan concert.
Oh, wow.
Little One Direction reunion.
All that.
Yeah, and he was staying at that Casa Sur Palermo hotel. Girlfriend had left a few days earlier, though.
So, he was with friends, old bandmates. I mean, sounds like he was reminiscing, having a good time at that concert.
Yeah, seems like
And then this happens. It's just jarring.
it really is.
Yeah.
So according to the TMZ report, hotel staff, they actually called 911.
Oh, wow.
Said Liam was being aggressive.
Aggressive.
Yeah. They said he was smashing his laptop in the lobby.
Oh, no.
They said they had to physically carry him back to his room because he was acting so erratically.
Wow. That just paints a picture of someone who was really, really struggling in that moment.
It does.
To go from celebrating being sober to smashing a laptop, I mean, it's a stark reminder of how powerful addiction is.
It is. And how even when you're trying to get better,
Yeah.
it can still have such a hold on you.
Yeah.
It's tragic.
It is.
And it makes what happened next even harder to hear.
This is where it gets really hard to hear, but the TMZ article, it doesn't get any easier, you know? It
Yeah.
goes on to describe what happened,
Yeah, I know.
those last few moments.
Yeah. Shortly after that 911 call, Liam fell from his balcony. Third floor. Sustained fatal injuries. Just awful.
Yeah.
Especially after everything that had just happened, you know?
It's almost impossible to wrap your head around. 1 minute he's with his bandmates, probably laughing, remembering old times, and then this.
I know.
You can't help but wonder what he was thinking, you know, in those last moments.
It's impossible to know.
The article, it goes on to say that paramedics, police, they responded, of course. They had to put up one of those red tents.
Yeah.
Standard procedure, I know, but still.
Somber. Just adds to the tragedy of it all.
It does. This is such a heartbreaking reminder of how fragile life is, how quickly things can change.
It really is.
As of right now, the investigation's still going on. Cause of death hasn't been officially determined. It's like we're all just waiting for answers, but will they even tell us anything, really?
That's the thing, isn't it? We may never fully understand what happened that night, what led to this.
Yeah.
And we have to, respect that.
You're right. You're right. When you look back at Liam's life, he was complicated. So many layers. The talent was obvious, right? The guy was driven. He wanted to succeed, and he cared about people. But he had his demons, that's for sure. Things he was battling behind the scenes. And it just goes to show you, fame, money, success, none of that makes you immune to pain, to addiction.
No, it doesn't. And I think Liam's story, it reminds us to be kind, to be understanding. We never really know what someone else is going through. We see the celebrity, we see the success, and we make assumptions.
Right.
But there's always more to the story, isn't there? Liam's story, it's a reminder to be more empathetic, more compassionate.
We need to talk more about mental health, about addiction, have those tough conversations.
Absolutely.
Asking for help. It's not weakness, you know?
Never.
It takes strength. It
Yeah.
takes courage. And we have to be there for each other. Make it okay to not be okay. Liam's story, it's a reminder of that, if nothing else.
It really is.
We want to hear from you. What are your reflections on Liam's life, his legacy? What sticks with you? Head over to our social media pages. Let's talk about it. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.